Hello artists, today we're going to be learning about the style of art known as Notan. It's a Japanese word that means light dark, and we're going to learn about positive and negative space along the way. Also some organic and geometric shapes too. It involves cutting, gluing, so you will need a dark paper, a light paper, and scissors and glue. Alright, gather your supplies and let's get started. For your Notan art, you're going to need 2 pieces of paper. One needs to be a light color and one needs to be a dark color. I'm using black because it's the darkest that I can get. If you don't have colored paper at home, you can use a crayon or a colored pencil or even some paint and color your paper in a nice dark color. So you would take a nice black or purple or blue, color your whole piece of paper. You don't really need to watch me do this whole thing like I did on this one. And then the other paper is just, you can just leave white and it will work great. So it's important because that you have a dark and a light, because the word Notan actually is a Japanese word that means light and dark. And what we are trying to seek out here is a balance between the light and the dark spaces on this paper. And if you look closely at my finished one over here, you'll notice that this right here is the same as the other one on the other side. So if you do this correctly, you will have 0 scraps when you're finished. And what we're really studying today with the Japanese artwork of Notan is space and shape. And when you look at a piece of artwork like this one, this is not a Notan, this is just a picture from my art textbook here. And when you look at this picture, the main things in this picture, the people, the buildings, the flag, the ship, those main objects and shapes that they make up take up the positive space in the picture. So if you look closely at this right here, they are highlighted in black over here. These are the positive shapes. The space that surrounds them and goes around all of the positive shapes, that is the negative space. Now with Notan, like I said, this is not an example of Notan. Notan, we are trying to achieve a balance or try to have them equally important. And so what we need to do is create a design that reflects that. And you can use either you can use either geometric or organic shapes to do this. Now, geometric shapes, let me just draw this right over here before we start. Geometric shapes are shapes, let me write that word geometric, geometric. Geometric shapes mean shapes that you would know from math class. They're symmetrical, so like a triangle, a square, circle. Often people refer to them as people-made shapes. You would not usually find these shapes in nature. Sometimes you find a circle. It might be something like a diamond. Many geometric shapes have straight edges and are very perfect. Now, there's another kind of shape. These are my favorite. These are called organic shapes. And you may have heard foods labeled organic. What the word organic really means are it's from nature. And so when you talk about organic shapes, they're not going to be symmetrical. They might be shapes that remind you of leaves. They might remind you of raindrops. They don't always have a specific name. You might describe them as blobs or clouds. These are just as important as the geometric. And I would like you to use a combination, both types of shapes in your Notan design today. All right, so if you've got your colored piece of paper, what I'd like you to do before you begin is to take a pencil and trace around your square very lightly. Notice this paper, the one in the middle, is quite a bit smaller. I've got some room on each side to make some designs. I did this. I may end up going back and erasing that, but this will help us when we start getting all of our other pieces. For right now, I'm going to set that paper aside, and I'm going to fold the small paper into triangles so that when I open it up, you'll see 4 smaller triangles. You can take your pencil at this point and you can decide if you're going to start with geometric or organic shapes. The rule is you must start on the side of your paper and you cannot cross over the triangle. So you'll see this shape that I drew is a geometric shape. It's symmetrical, which means it's the same on both sides, nearly the same on both sides. And it has straight edges, so that makes it seem more geometric. Now, you can also, if you've got room in here, fit another shape inside. And if you really want to, if you've got extra room, you can even fit one more inside there. Now, I will do the same type of shapes on the other, maybe different types, but what I'm going to do, I just want to show you this first before we go farther. I'm going to cut on those lines. Now, when you're cutting, go slowly because there's no going back and trimming this. If you do Notan correctly, you will not have any scraps left over. If you have scraps left over, the balance between your dark and light will not be the same. So I'm going to cut on the smaller shapes as well. Now, bring this back over for just a moment. What I'm going to do, I'm going to pretend for a minute that these are all cut. You would glue down your biggest piece first. I'm not really going to do that just because if I do that now, it won't match up. What I do is I put this back in like a puzzle piece. It's like a very simple puzzle. Even the little triangle. It's okay if they're a little off right now. Here's what we will do eventually. We will take the next largest piece, the biggest shape that I cut out, which is this one, and I am going to take that piece, lift it up, and then flip it across that line. And you can see where my square is that I drew. Now you'll notice that this perfectly matches the colored paper over here, the empty negative space. If you look, I have to flip this one too, this little tiny one, because it's sitting right in there, and there you go. Each side will be perfectly balanced. It will look better when I glue this down. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to design the 3 more spaces on here, and then I will cut them out. It's important while you're cutting that you don't lose any of your pieces. So watch. I will fast forward through this part. You can watch me do this really quickly. Remember when you're drawing your shapes, not to make them too difficult because you are the one that is going to cut them out. So design shapes that you feel comfortable cutting. Remember, if you get off the line, just keep cutting. Don't go back and trim. Okay, so I have all of my pieces cut out. I kind of tried to keep them separate, little piles around my square. And so what I'm going to do first is I am going to take my glue. Since this is my largest piece, the rule is when you're gluing, always go with the largest piece first, which in this case is the leftover piece from the square. And what you want to do is put that right so that it matches the corners that you drew first. Okay. Then you're going to take one of your shapes and place your pieces in like it's a puzzle. I've got all my pieces in there. So the rule is, remember, start with your biggest piece and work to the smallest. So that means in this case, I'm going to start with this piece. Now, don't pick it up when you go to glue. Use the edge of your glue stick or your glue bottle. Just get a little bit of glue in there, just enough. You don't need to go wild with the glue. Pick up that big piece and then flip it. Now, you're probably asking me, why can't I pick up my pieces? If you were to pick up your pieces, what ends up happening, I'm going to stick this now so it fits in there perfectly. If you pick up your pieces, you might end up gluing the wrong side. If you do that, you can't get rid of the glue, and then you just have glue on both sides of your paper. You can't really create a new one just to match it. Use that line that you drew with your pencil to keep your pieces lined up. And then my last little piece fits in like this. So I put just a little bit of glue and then flip it over. All right, I'm going to continue working on the rest of my shapes. I'll put this on fast forward so it doesn't take so long for you guys to view this part of the video. Okay, so I have all my pieces glued for my Notan. Now you'll notice that you still see some pencil lines. Once your glue is dry, if those pencil lines are really bothering you, you can go back and erase them. But be careful that you are gentle while doing this so that you don't tear your paper. All right, so this is our completed Notan. I hope you had fun designing yours today. Remember, you need to have at least 4 different places where you're cutting out, and then work on flipping and making your pieces equal. No trimming. The nice thing about this, there's no scraps left over, and you have a wonderful piece of artwork to enjoy. Have a great day and stay creative, artists. Bye-bye.